Hello and welcome. This is going to be the first episode in a series I like to call Mechanical Magic. There's a lot of series on YouTube and there's a lot of series on the occult in general that usually are going to want to teach you about philosophy and theology, and I am not one of those people. This is specifically a series about the mechanics and what you should know mechanically about esoteric things and the occult. I am a practitioner. I am a occultist first and a YouTuber like third. Okay? So this video is specifically going to be what I call the Magician's Toolbox. This is what you should bare minimum have in your toolbox. Now, bear with me. If you're new to the world of spirituality, this is going to be broken down into levels. You don't need all of these things at once. I didn't work on all these things. I didn't even work on all the things in level 1 at the same time. Alright? I've broken this down into 4 sections in 4 levels. So there are 4 groups of 4. Going from easiest, which I consider the most basic, to the most advanced. Okay? Cool. Starting with level 1. Getting this out of the way right now, we have meditation. Meditation is the bread and butter. You will be doing meditation. If you start doing spirituality and you start doing spiritual things, you're going to be meditating constantly. You're going to be meditating at least once a day. It's just bread and butter. You need to do it. It's really just the working out of occultism. It's really just after a certain point you do it for maintenance. Really, that's what you're doing. Number 2. I have a basic divination system. You want basic divination systems. When I was starting out in my occult journey, I was meditating on a tarot card, 1 per day, to learn the meanings of the cards, what they meant to me. Of course, I had the books so I could read the interesting meanings, but sometimes you can meditate on cards and you can get different meanings that are more personal to you. I recommend doing this if you have not already. However, other systems might have a different divination system. This video is kind of a catch-all system, or catch-all type thing. Not really we're not really specifying here. This should be applicable to most, if not all, systems. Third, basic banishing ritual. This is just to kind of clean up your spiritual space. This is, like the lesser banishing ritual, the pentagram, for like Thelema, Golden Dawn style, Wicca, that kind of thing. You want a ritual that is just a nice daily upkeep thing. You can just do it once a day. It keeps some of the lower tier nasties out of your space, like the, not like full-fledged demons, because you shouldn't be calling up demons, but it does work. You just want to have a nice space cleaning ritual, right? Like an easy one that you don't have to go like, oh, I think something's in my house, I gotta smudge. No, it shouldn't have gotten that far. You should have a ritual that is just nice, simple, you can just use it, and you'll be good to go. The last one in level 4 is Sigil Magic. Now, I'm going to be considering Sigil Magic a extremely low effort functional manifestation spell. Right? This requires a pen and a piece of paper. There are videos on YouTube teaching you how to do sigil magic, and there are people selling courses online to teach you how to do much more complicated sigil magic. I'm not going to explain sigil magic here. You can find them if you so desire and you want me to do a video on sigils. Please leave a comment. I can do a video on sigils, but a lot of other people have covered it. If I was to do a video on sigils, I would be covering a lot more than what I'm going to be calling manifestation sigils, which are the sigils I'm referencing here. These are the sigils to manifest something, which are not to be confused with spirit sigils, which we will be talking a little bit more about in level 3 and level 4. So, basic manifestation sigils, you want to be able to do basic sigil magic. Alright? These are level 1. I consider these the basics. Everyone should do these. Even if you don't really have like a strong spiritual practice and you're just dabbling, you should at least be able to get these up and running. Okay? These don't require much. You can, if you don't have a tarot deck, you can grab MS Paint or your free paint software of choice for the divination, grab a dice, or go to random.org or something, as long as it's not raining, and you can do geomancy, right? There are alternatives, okay? Moving on to level 2. Level 2 is a little bit more advanced. I consider these pretty basic, but I've been doing this for honestly too long at this point. First thing, in level 2, scrying. Now I know that people will think this is a little bit advanced, okay? But scrying is very simple. If you can meditate, you will eventually just naturally develop the ability to scry. In my experience, if you learn to meditate and you're meditating properly and you get deep into meditation, you can learn to meditate and you can learn to scry while you are meditating. Meditating on cards is low-key a form of scrying, in my opinion, right? Scrying can be used for a lot of things. Scrying is the gateway to evocation, which we will be talking about in further levels. Scrying is the gateway to deeper meditation and, well, not deeper meditation, but deeper divination. Deeper divination, you'll be able to learn things, and eventually you will be able to use scrying as kind of... Scrying can develop into its own practice in and of itself. Scrying can develop into its own practice if you feel so inclined. It's up to you what you do with your scrying abilities. Number 2, in level 2, is a more advanced divination system. So in the beginning, I mentioned how when I was starting, I used 1 card per day, and I just meditated on the card to learn the meanings. I did that for a while, then eventually I moved up to tarot spreads, which gave me a very interesting situation where I had learned the meanings of the cards, and I was now applying the meanings of the cards to specific scenarios. What does the 10 of Cups mean as a negative? What does the 3 of Swords mean as a positive? What does the Tower as the current situation mean when my life is stable? Right? That kind of thing. This is a more advanced divination system because instead of just getting one meaning, you have to apply the meaning through a lens. Alright? And if you're not using tarot, I mentioned geomancy in the bridge between level 2 or level 1 and level 2. If you're using a different divination system, there are, generally speaking, more advanced techniques that you can apply after you've finished learning the basics in order to continue and develop your divinatory skills. Number 3 in level 2 is a more potent banishing or banishing for higher tier problems. So, I mentioned LBRP in the first section. The LBRP doesn't banish everything. The LBRP specifically banishes lower tier entities that are generally not, suitable to be in your space, and elemental forces. It doesn't banish planetaries, it doesn't banish demonic forces, it doesn't even banish the Fae, right? It doesn't banish a lot of things that you would want to banish. It is notable that just because you have one banishing ritual does not mean you have a one-size-fits-all ritual. Because some problems can't be banished by a one-size-fits-all. Some things need to be banished by very specific use of very specific rituals. I know that some systems have an entire system of you have to use a very specific ritual to banish them, and if they don't, you have to use a cleansing ritual in order to cleanse them out of you and to cleanse them out of your space. Alright? We use specialized rituals for specialized things. If you're going to invoke planetaries, which we will be talking about next in the level 3 section, you're going to want to banish those using their proper banishing before you do any other banishings. Okay? 4. A basic manifestation spell. Now, I had Sigil Magic in the previous section. This is building off of Sigil Magic. I personally, for years, have preferred Candle Magic because I'm a very fiery person when it comes to my soul, and Candle Magic works extremely quickly for me. Candle Magic usually takes about a couple days, but it's still a couple less days than not having it at all. It's a couple more days than, now, but it's a lot sooner than not getting it at all, right? So that's what I mean by basic manifestation spell. You want a spell that will manifest what you want in your life. And you want to understand what you are manifesting, and you want to know the basics of your manifestation spells system. If you are using color correspondence in your candles, that will work better than if you're just using white candles. If you are using scents in your candles, you want to make sure they correspond using your correspondence system in whatever stuff you are using. This is just kind of important, and I find it to be quite useful. That's the last thing in level 2. Let's talk about level 3 real quick. Level 3 is where we get into more advanced things. Level 3 is where we get into some things that beginners can do. Some people can in level 1 and level 2 can do it if they're having like level 3 and 4 tier problems. But generally speaking, you're not going to want to use these unless you actually... unless you're actually a little bit more advanced and you have your shit together, magically speaking. Level 1, evocations of good spirits. Now, you should be, if you have gotten all of the things in the previous levels, have developed a good scrying ability and can scry things that are pretty insane and get true, accurate results through your divinations or whatever you're scrying. If you can do this, you should be able to evoke good spirits. Now, I say good spirits because good spirits, when you're starting with evocation, are what you should be working with. Don't do the stupid thing of, I can work with demons because I can evoke things. Don't do that until you have practice with evoking things that are usually generally nicer. You don't want to just go ahead and be like, I'm going to start going through and I'm going to evoke all these demonic forces because I can evoke things now because I'm a cool occultist and, don't do that. Don't. That's not good. That's not smart. Work at a pace that you're actually capable of and know when you are ready for things, okay? Eventually, you will be ready to do those things. If you haven't evoked, say, the spirits of the planets, the intelligence of the planets, the archangels, the Olympic planetaries, the elemental kings, why are you jumping straight to demons? First of all, if you have the elemental kings on your side, you have 4 legions of spirits that are willing to help you, and they're pretty effective. People underestimate how effective elemental spirits are. I'm going to have some more stuff on elementals coming soon if you were looking forward to that. I know a lot of people love the elementals. So, I'm just going to let you out there. I'm just going to lay it out there. You want to know how to evoke good spirits so you can converse with them, get them on your side. You at least want to do some introduction evocations to be like, hey, just want to come out, hang out, see which ones you interact with the best. Because sometimes you want to work with a spirit, and that spirit doesn't like you. It's just like, I thought that guy was cool, but I guess not. Maybe that spirit's not for you. Maybe another spirit who's similar in nature is right for you. It all depends. I know Vulcan and Hephaestus are a good example of this. Vulcan is seen to be a kind of a really angry guy, generally kind of a miserable entity to work with. He is all anger all the time. Not really a good entity to work with. Hephaestus is similar, but their vibe is very different. Hephaestus' vibe is more a skilled craftsman. Vulcan's vibe is significantly more, I am the master of the volcano. Right? Very different spirits. Similar vibe, though. Number 2, invocations. So this is going to be kind of an umbrella term. Invocations are going to be when you're invoking the energy of a planet or of a element or of a god. This is called a god form. If you're doing any of these 3 things, you're usually using invocationary prayers. Invocations are to bring the entity or the power that you're trying to bring into your circle, into you. And generally, you're going to be invoking good things, like you're going to be invoking kind of a nebulous concept, in my opinion. You're going to be invoking fire, or earth, or water, or air, or one of the planetary forces. Maybe you're invoking abundance and happiness into your life. Maybe you're invoking love because you want to get more love into your life, that kind of thing. This is where you would want to learn how to do those invocations of things. because invocations are good, but you shouldn't be doing them if you don't have the practice. And if we have the potent banishings from level 2, we can banish those problems when they arise, because invocations, you want to banish the thing after you're done, because you don't want rogue elementals or rogue planetary forces just kind of vibing in your space, because eventually they will go rogue and they can cause you a lot more problems than if you had just banished. This is why we get banishings before, and then we get invocations after. Third is a high tier banishing. Now, before, we had low tier banishing. In the middle, we had more potent banishings for more specialized problems. I'm going to recommend you learn the Bornless Rite. The Bornless Rite is written in the Goetia of Crowley, and the Bornless Rite is one of the most famous occult rituals of all times. I think it's kind of a very iconic occult phrase to just, I invoke thee that art the Bornless one, is just a very powerful phrase. And anyone who knows that ritual gets a little... I like to imagine that everyone who hears that gets a little bit of a tingle in the back of their spine, like, ooh, that's power right there. You want a powerful banishing ritual. Now I'm asterisk here. The Bornless Ritual, or the Bornless Rite, is the one I'm going to be recommending in this section, but if your system has a more potent banishing for your path specifically, I recommend using that. However, I'm going to recommend the Bornless Rite because the Bornless Rite is just kind of a really powerful thing to say. It's just kind of a really potent thing to say. It's just really powerful. You feel like an absolute king of your domain, or queen, if you're a woman. You feel like an absolute king or queen of your castle when you say it, and you feel like a goddamn magician, because that's what it's supposed to make you feel. You're supposed to feel powerful when you're doing these top tier banishings, because you are the supreme authority in your space when you're doing it. 4. We have more complex manifestation spells. Now, in the previous section, I mentioned candle magic, and in the previous section before that, I mentioned sigil magic. Now, here's where you can add planetary magic. So, a more complex system would be you invoke a planetary spirit, you have a candle dressed with oil and herbs, and you have the sigil of what you want engraved on the candle, and that's your manifestations. You have your petition under the candle, and you have it, and it seems more magical, really. And you've done all these things. You've added the timing element of planetary magic. You've added the sigil magic from level 1, and you're using it in level 2's candle magic, which I'm using as basic manifestation. So you have taken these elements and you've combined them into a more complex ritual. You can even write your own prayer if you feel so inclined. Or you can, maybe you don't want to use planetary magic. Maybe you want to invoke a god or a goddess, and you want to use some Greek gods in your ritual. Well, you can use the Orphic hymns and assume the god form of the entity. Now, god forms are kind of an invocation. God forms are their own topic. I'm not going to go much into detail, but just know that they're basically, you're invoking a god into your space to assist you with your operation. Again, you should be doing some introductionary rituals to kind of work with them, to kind of introduce yourself to them and that kind of thing. However, for the most part, you're going to want to have a basic and a more complex manifestation, because not all things can be solved with basic manifestation spells. Sometimes you're going to want more heavy-duty rituals, and that's totally fine. This is where you should be learning those. After you've gotten the basic manifestations down, this is where you want to learn the heavier manifestation stuff. Now, that is level 3. If that sounded complicated, go back. Don't try to do level 3. Just take a moment and learn level 1 and 2. Okay? For those of you who thought level 3 was a little bit too, that's kind of basic. That's kind of basic. I already got that stuff down. I've been doing invocations for years. I already have the Bornless Rite memorized. I have I've been using the different modes for the Bornless Rite for years. I'm a hardcore Thelemite and a hardcore Golden Dawn person. I've been doing this stuff for years. This is where we get into level 4. Level 4 is for evocation of bad spirits. This is where you crack open the Lesser Key. This is where you crack open the Pseudomarchia Daemonis. This is where you crack open all of the demonic catalogs. And this is where you can go wild with some of the more wacky spirits. This is where you're going to be working with the more demonic forces, because you now have the full knowledge of the good spirits, and you now know how to deal with things that are going to give you lip and back sass. Because if you get a spirit that's going to give you lip and back sass, you're going to be totally fine with going in and laying down the law, so to speak. Alright? So now this is where we can start doing evocations of bad spirits. 2. Full god form invocations and spirit catalogs. Now, this is actually more of a physical thing, in my opinion. So god form invocations are, like I mentioned, more specialized invocations of, gods. They're like the divinities, not like big G god like the Yahweh and the Allah and the Jehovah. Not those. This is more invoking Dionysus and Persephone and Hades and Ares and Athena and Artemis and Zeus and Horus and Ra and all of these other gods that aren't coming into my mind, like Thor, Odin, Freya. I don't work with god forms that much. I'll be perfectly frank with all of you. I don't work with god forms that much, especially given some, things in my past and in my, hopefully, future. I don't really work with god forms, right? But if you feel so inclined, this is where you would learn how to work with god forms. And this is also where you would go and crack open some spirit catalogs. Spirit catalogs are books that people have compiled, similar to the Goetia. The Goetia is the most famous spirit catalog. And what I mean by spirit catalogs is these are basically spiritual phone books. You can go crack open a spirit catalog, and it will give you a big list of spirits that you can invoke. Evoke. You don't want to invoke these spirits. You can go call up these spirits using your evocation methods that you learned in the previous section, or in this section if you're learning to call up demons and you want to call up something that is known to be a particular right bastard, you can call them up, and you can just go through and look through spirit catalogs. And if you go through and you look up the different kinds of spirits, there are a lot more spirits that you can learn to evoke. If you were to just go through and use, say, a basic spirit catalog in level 3, like evoking spirits into crystals by Trithemius, that is only 7 spirits. If you're using the Arbitel, that's only 7 spirits. However, if you were to take all of the, extant spirit catalogs out there, just the basic angelic ones, you would find that it is easy to get a catalog compiled for your own personal use of no less than 133 spirits. I think I actually missed some, and it should actually be 142, if I'm thinking about it correctly, but a lot of overlap, so I'd need to run some more math. But 133 is the number we're going to go with. That is a lot more than 7, and they all have different uses, and that's only including good spirits. So if you add spirit catalogs to your practice, your number of assistance that you can receive goes up exponentially. This isn't even including the elementals here, and it gets wild how much assistance you can get from, divine aid if you were willing to look in some books about who is out there, right? Spirit catalogs are really an understated thing, and I quite enjoy them because they're really just spiritual phone books. Number 3 in level 4 is somebody fucked around and they need to find out. The ritual. This is where you get a more potent fuck around find out ritual. This is no longer for spirits causing you problems. This is for other practitioners causing you problems. Now, much like, gun safety, you should never want to have to use this. But some people in the occult community are right bastards and need to be fucking around, and they're fucking around, and they need to find out sometimes. And the more you fuck around, the more you're going to find out. Because some people need to find out. And we should feel bad for those people. Because no one should have to fuck around and find out when it comes to how much is an occultist willing to throw at you. Now, I'm not talking about I found this lemon hex on TikTok kind of hex or ritual. I'm talking, a ritual that you would hypothetically name after a gun. If you would write a ritual that is so potent, or it's given to you by a spirit, you can evoke a spirit of, say, Mars to give you a ritual like this. And you should never want to have to use these rituals. Never. You don't want to use these rituals because these are rituals that are supposed to send the energy back, send any curses back at your people who have cast them at you. And you should never want to curse people, right? Because that's just bad karma. And a little bit of a mini lesson on why you shouldn't curse people. If you're cursing people all the time, it makes it significantly easier for people to curse you. Because, hypothetically, somebody only has, I'm going to use a basic candle spell as an example. Hypothetically, someone is shooting curses at everyone 24/7. They're, cursing people at least twice a week, right? That's bad karma, because then all it takes to fuck up their day is one person with a 4-inch candle they bought on Amazon that is the right color and has a sigil that says anything that this asshole sent to other people is returned to them tenfold. Put that sigil on the candle, put that candle in the holder, burn it, and cast it the way you would normally do, and all of a sudden they have, let's say they just did 10 curses in a month, they have 10 curses reflecting back at them at 10 times the strength, right? That's gonna fuck someone up. You don't want to curse people. I am very anti-cursing. Full disclosure on this channel. But sometimes people are fucking around. Sometimes people need to find out. And if people need to find out, this is what this ritual is for. I'm not going to give you a ritual. I'm going to let you find one. However, I did give a hint that if you are getting good at evocation, you should probably call up a spirit of Mars and get one from there. Self-defense type thing. Number 4, and this is what I will leave you with. Level 4 is the HGA, or your system's equivalent of what your spiritual guide should be. The HGA is a long process to get. It is a long time coming. It is honestly the beginning of your true spiritual journey. The Holy Guardian Angel is said to be one of the first things that you should be doing. This is why the Thelemites talk about it so much. The HGA is a really powerful force, but all good, trustworthy systems in pretty much everywhere have an equivalent. And you can get your Holy Guardian Angel's equivalent through a variety of methods in a variety of systems, and you want to do that because they're the best spiritual guide for you. I am some guy on the internet. I am a person who is preaching to a choir of hundreds of thousands of people. And the HGA is your personal spirit. It is your personal spirit. The HGA is a tutelary spirit that is going to guide you and teach you in the ways that you need to be taught, and it's going to teach you and guide you in the ways that you need to learn. I am a person. The HGA is a spirit, and if your system doesn't have the HGA but it has an equivalent, go for that instead. It should be one of your first priorities. If after you've gotten everything settled down, that's when you should go for your HGA. After everything is settled in mundane life, that's when you should go for your HGA. And then you should do what the HGA tells you and then go from there. I hope this has been helpful to some of you. If this has been helpful, please leave a comment in my comment section below about what you'd want to see. I thank you for sticking around to the end of the video. And, leave a like, comment, share the video. I don't really advertise this anywhere, but other people seem to like my content, so I'm going to keep making it. I apologize for my long hiatuses. I'm going to try to do that significantly less, and by significantly less, I mean not at all. So I'm going to try to stop with the long hiatuses. But yeah, hope you had a good day. Take it easy, and rewatch this video if you need to refresh yourself.